Hi, I'm David Grissom. I'm here at Sweetwater today to talk about my new signature PRS DGT 15 amplifier. This is a lower powered version of the DG Custom 30 that Doug Sewell and I designed several years ago. The goal here was to take the DNA of that amp that has worked really well for me, put it in a package more players can use in a club setting, a lower volume, and definitely at a better price point. And I'm really, really excited. We've kind of retained the same inherent tone of the original amp, but Doug also added several features that make it even more useful, adds some features that I wish the other one had. It's a very vintage-inspired amp that takes pedals really well. It's not a super high-gain amp. It's not the kind of amp that I think would benefit from an effects loop because I'm not overdrive. Even when I'm playing distorted, it's really coming from the output stage. I chose not to put an effects loop in it because I think that adds just another element and another circuit that can sort of mess with this more organic tone that I prefer. The benchmark for me when we were designing these amps, Doug would come to my house and I would get my Tweed Deluxe, my JTM 45, my high watt 50-watt amp, and then a 50-watt plexi, and we would sort of point out the attributes of each one, the nice top end, the creamy top end of the Tweed, and the JTM 45, the way the mid-range control worked on the high watt, very powerful mid-range control, and then the bottom end of the 50-watt plexi. And I was just trying to get an amp that would do all that at the same time, which is a tall order. Starting with a blank piece of paper, Doug flying to Austin with the latest version, and we'd open these things up and change resistor values, and it's something that has worked really well for me for many, many years now. Having a lot of vintage amps, I seem to always fall back on that 30-watt when I'm recording and live both. It really lives in the mid-range where the guitar shines, fits in a band context as well as for recording. Having said that, the way the low end is tailored in the amp, you can turn the bass up, which I do. You shouldn't be afraid to do that, and it does not get flubby or muddy. Just kind of show you how I use it. It's got two modes, normal and boost. It's not a channel switching amp. When it's in boost, it basically just allows a little more of the dry signal to come through, which is perceived as higher gain. It's definitely louder than the normal mode. When I play live, I pretty much set it and forget it in that mode. When I'm playing live with the 30-watt, which does not have the foot switch like this amp, kind of get my clean tone by just backing off the volume of the guitar. On this amp, we've added a foot switch that I can go from normal to boost. I can turn the reverb off and on, and I can turn the juicy sounding tube tremolo on and off. I'll show you how I set it up to start. Sort of general ideas. When I hit the guitar hard, with the volume on the guitar all the way up, it's going to crunch nicely. It's not a really super overdriven tone, but when I can feel it respond to my touch, and that to me is like the first thing I check out, that there's not too much compression, but there's just enough so that I can really manipulate the tone with my hands. If I'm not going to go to the normal mode, I can just turn the volume down to about 6 or 7. Get a nice cleaner tone, especially if I'm using more of an ambient. With some delay or something like that, and just turn it back up. From there, I have a boost. On this tiny board that I've got an Exotic EP booster, and that just takes the same sound, hits the front end of the amp a little harder. I also have an overdrive pedal, and so I'm basically thinking of these as just different channels. When I turn down a little bit, that's sort of channel 1, turn all the way up, that's 2, the boost is channel 3, and then the overdrive, I've chosen an overdrive that is not a super mid-focused overdrive because I'm getting that out of the amp. Both these pedals are just an extension of the tone that's already there. And this is going to hit the front end of the amp harder, and I'm adding a touch of gain with it. My goal is to sort of not, when I hit an overdrive pedal, is to not lose the basic organic tone I've started with, which I just really love. I can even put the boost and distortion on at the same time, and I do some at the end of a solo if I want it to go one louder, to quote one of my favorite movies. I've always liked the sound of what I call clean feedback, so I'm able to get the guitar to maybe go into feedback on certain notes without it being really distorted. This amp does that really well. Setting the amp up this way really is tailored towards the bridge pickup. And sometimes I avoid the neck pickup because it gets a little muddy to me when it's set up like this. Not bad, but I don't, it's not quite there. The great, cool, super cool features that Doug did was he has a toggle switch here for the bright switch. And one of the options, you can have the bright switch on for both channels. You can have it off for both channels. In the down position on this middle toggle switch, when I go to normal mode, the bright switch comes on. So I can go from an overdriven tone with the bridge pickup and go to the normal mode, and then when the bright switch comes on, here's the normal mode with the bright switch on, the neck pickup really shines. It also sounds great with the other pickups as well if I want a cleaner tone. If I'm going for like a country thing, with the volume set here at about 5, the preamp volume, I'm still getting a little bit of harmonic action. It's not totally clean. I can knock this back to about 3. It'll clean up nicely. Which gets me into more blackface range, if I want it to be that way, and especially in the studio if I don't want to carry 5 amps with me. The way the circuit works and the options on it really allow me to get to a lot of different places very quickly. The first toggle switch allows me to either manually go to boost mode or normal mode. The bottom position, it makes it controlled by the foot switch, which is the way I have it now. I can foot switch in and out of normal and boost mode. I can have the master off and bypass that completely. I can have it on for both channels, so I can take the level of the whole amp down, or I can just have it on for the boost section, and that's the way I've got it now. The cool thing about that is I can then match the level of the normal and the boost mode, so my cleaner and dirtier levels are matched. This amp is really designed like a vintage amplifier in that the more I can get the output stage and the power tubes involved in the program, the juicier it's going to sound. So I'll switch back and forth between boost and normal mode now, and the way I have the master volume toggle where it's just only engaged on the boost mode, you can hear that the level is pretty similar. That's boost. I could even turn it up a little more. Both those sound really good to me. And again, it works great as a pedal platform where you just incrementally adding gain from a couple of pedals takes that tone to another level. You can hear a little bit of spring reverb, which I'm really fond of and was adamant that we included on the amp. And the sweep on the reverb knob is definitely a gradual onset, and you can go from a very subtle reverb barely turn it on. You still hear it a touch. Can get into surf territory by turning up in this. I kind of favor it back here at about 10 o'clock, something like that. Reverb sounds great, and Doug added a bias tremolo to the amp, which the 30 does not have. I have a love-hate relationship with tremolo pedals. I just prefer amp tremolo. I think it does something, and especially where it comes in the circuit. That's with the intensity about halfway up. Turn it up a little higher and get the speed all the way up. It also sounds great with the speed all the way in the slowest position. It almost takes on a univibe character. So really versatile, beautiful sounding tremolo. Again, foot switchable, really nice feature to have. Today I'm playing my signature model PRS, the DGT, one that I just pulled off the wall here at Sweetwater. We've been going over the new PRS DGT 15 amplifier. If you have any questions, please contact your Sweetwater sales engineer for all the details. Thank you.